Hey guys and girls, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. It is with Mr. Dalton Franke, a very good friend of mine, as well as my first ever nutrition coach. We dive into some mindset behavioral stuff, as well as talking about will, motivation, and inspiration, and sort of the differences there. Hopefully you enjoy this and gives you some sort of background into this sort of thing. Enjoy.
Nutrition, lifestyle, and PED education. This is the Elite Strength Podcast with Aaron Scarfy.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to episode 11 now of the Elite Strength Podcast, here with my first ever nutrition coach and good friend, Mr. Dalton Franke. How are you, sir?
Hey, mate. I am excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Talking a little bit off camera about your little uni assignments and the old days. Well, yeah. Stressing myself out.
Yeah, it reminds you, like, it's a very similar Dalton. You just keep seeing me in like patches of like hyper stress, focus, vigilance for like around this like end of semester, and then the next time you talk to me, I'm like a completely different person because I'm not focused on 4 different subjects trying to pull myself in all the different directions.
Yes, and then you're being very, very relaxed and back to normal.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground. That's a man of 2 extremes.
Yeah, I've worked very hard on trying to like find some balance, and my balance is just throttling between those 2 extremes. So just kind of lean into it.
As long as you can accept it, right? You're right. All good.
Yeah, totally. Like instead of trying to force my way to like adapt to something, I was like, you know what? I know this is true to me. So if I can figure out how to make that work in my event to my benefit, I can. Because for the last 4.5 years, I've pretty much done university full time and coach full time. So, and you experience this yourself, but like many other people, when I talk to them about that, they're doing one or the other. So not many people, not many uni kids do I sit and talk to that, like have any concept of what they want to do in the workplace after stuff, let alone work at the same time. I think I go to a little bit of an uppity school where it seems to come from a bit more rich kids and stuff there, but so like in their social circles and stuff, talking in different tutorial groups and stuff, you hear some people who do maybe some part-time or whatever, but like I haven't met anyone yet that's worked full-time the whole way through their uni.
It's a bit different going to uni or going back to school when you're a bit of a bit more mature age and stuff, and you've been working beforehand, and then you have to go back and study. Like,
I am not giving up anything in my fucking life. That's what I was like. I don't want to take a step back. Like I don't want to go from living in nice apartments and in the city and stuff like that to like having to share house again. Like I don't want to do that shit. I did that shit for so long.
You're accustomed to a lifestyle, and you're going to keep it.
I'm not willing, right? Not willing to sacrifice it. So it's like just tolerate it.
So anyway, let's have a little chat about you, man, and your background and what you've been doing, and I guess where you come from. First and foremost, what are you studying? Let the people know. I mean, I know.
So I'm studying a Bachelor of Exercise and Nutritional Science. So the original intent, friggin' 8 years ago, was that I would become this personal trainer and slowly do some certificates and stuff that I saw being offered around from different institutes for certifications to just help out in personal training. There never was any intention to be a nutritionist. I have this very like stuck memory of myself when I laughed about the concept of even becoming a dietitian. Like I had no idea about nutrition 8 years ago. And in like the following conversations, I remember specifically someone asking me about nutrition and like, or a perspective from a dietitian. And I was like, well, I would never become a dietitian. So like, I would never even know how to answer this or whatever. And then kind of like fast forward, the whole point of this bachelor was to become a dietitian. So
it's funny how things go full circle, right?
Yeah, it's kind of come full circle. And like part of the reason for that was that question at the time that was being framed to me was when I was in the army.
Yeah.
And I hated not knowing something about like back then. So when I first started, before I even became a personal trainer, I was in the army, and we had 100 other guys that were in your unit that you're training with, or your company. And so in that company, you're like competing against these other 100 guys, and it's like testosterone fueled landscape trying to like outdo each other. ignoring the chronic drinking, the chronic smoking, the chronic, the horrible food.
Ignore the fun stuff.
Ignore any of that. The army is literally just like the best place to overtrain like crazy. So we train 2 to 3 times a day, a minimum a day in a gym session generally. So it was nearly always like some form of physical activity, and I had no idea about anything. But to me, the most logical assessment was, what if everyone else keeps beating me and stuff? Maybe I need to train harder, figure out how to train harder, train harder. So it would never be, how do I recover harder, or how do I nutrition harder or sleep harder? It was like, how do I keep doing this crazy lifestyle that the army is and train harder as well? And then I didn't get any more fit or anything like that. I had a crack at like special, so the what do we call it? The 2 Commando, which is the Special Forces Regiment down in, so I had a crack at the pre-selection force and stuff, like the build up for that to go off and do the Special Forces training. And during that, I ripped my ankle apart. And so I didn't even get to go to the Special Forces to the next stage or anything. It was just that build up to go off and have a crack at the selection there. And so you just keep going around in this like injury, hyperfit. And I was only in there 4 years, but like I've ripped my shoulder apart. I've ripped my ankle apart. I've had like dislocated thumbs and stuff like that. I've had heat stress so many times that like where you nearly pass out and stuff. Just due to, we train in Darwin, so like it's 40 degrees plus all the time. So like you constantly in the
40 degrees.
And so like, but not once did anyone ever say, like, until maybe 3rd or 4th year, did they ever say like, you should probably eat better or sleep better or something like that?
This is probably a bad idea with what you're doing.
But like everyone's perspective was just to train harder. And so like when you're getting trained by people in the army, you don't get trained by someone that's like a trained professional in fitness. You get trained by the corporal that's been there like a little bit longer than you. The only application that they have is like train you till you throw up. So throwing up every session was a measure of success. The more people that threw up, the faster, the better the session would finish. And so depending on the corporal that you had or where you were at the time, when you moved around companies, you could have sessions that went for like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get people to throw up because not enough people had thrown up for it to be a successful session. So fucking like you quickly learn to not eat before training and stuff like that. So like, it's just a recipe for disaster. And I like in the last year, 3rd or 4th year, someone asked me what a carbohydrate was on the back of a packet, and I had no idea. I was like, and I hated that feeling of not knowing. So like in a violent attempt to overcompensate that lack of knowledge, I've gone so far as like I looked at doing a PhD in nutrition just to absolve from that feeling of not knowing something about food, to the point that I know so much about food that I completely forget shit all the time. I'm like, oh, did I say that? Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's like, and then you realize the more you start learning, the less you know, right? The good old fashioned.
100%. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I went through that whole predicament. But yeah, so because of that, I got really interested in nutrition because I didn't know anything, and started teaching myself about food and food tracking and helping some of the other guys out in the army understand food a little bit. I kind of introduced 5RAR to like flexible dieting and tracking and stuff like that, which was like not something that people were doing. Everyone was kind of following basic meal plans and shit at the time that was just being pumped out. And so I started talking about that. I just at a very basic level. Like I remember thinking that I taught them a lot, but I look back at the information. I'm like, God damn it, I'm an idiot. It was so bad.
We've all been there.
Oh God, so bad, so cringeworthy. So yeah, after I left the army, I did private security for a while, and I did personal training. So I left the army, went and did private security in the middle of Australia.
Yep.
And whilst doing private security, I got my certificates. So I did those in like, they're meant to be a 3-month course or whatever. I did them in like 6 weeks, 5 weeks, because there's nothing else to do out there besides private security. So I just had 8 to 10 hours to myself. I just flew through everything, sent it all back, and they're like, well, you're like scheduled for the practical assessment in like late October or something like that. And at this point it was June. So I was like, fuck, this sucks. Yeah. So I just had to stay out there and wait until like I came back, wait until they had that practical opening, and then I could get certified and stuff. So I originally got certified in Cert 3 and 4, and then I did another certificate in older populations, because I was like, oh, I'll work with older people. That seems to be the future.
Yes.
It made sense at the time. It still makes sense now, but like it just never eventuated. So like I never saw people that were above 65 plus as a main clientele in the gym. They just weren't coming in enough. Sure. And so everyone else that I was kind of servicing was always young or, young under 65 for sure. Most often between 18 and 45. And so, I did that for a few years. Then at the same time, this is right around when Facebook was getting kind of big and Facebook groups were overtaking like internet forums and stuff. So people weren't really sitting on internet forums and chatting anymore. It was kind of being pulled over to Facebook. So Facebook groups were getting massive. And I was in fucking hundreds of them and just talking about nutrition and fitness and all of them. And I just argue with people everywhere. And through that, right, you wouldn't believe it.
No, the old days, but anyone that doesn't know Dalton, he likes to argue a lot, especially back in his days. It's how he used to fuel his fire. Just send you a quote and be like, this dude said this, and just start watching on Twitch.
Everyone else would rile me up. I just seem to be so reactive. More so because it was like when people were spouting information, I was like, it is so easy to like double check what you're saying. Like it's one quick Google search away to be like optimal protein and like for my day. Like you type that in, you'll get there's so many so it's like education is free. It's so accessible. So it like I found it offensive that people would continually tell people to do this stuff with no evidence behind it or no logic, no rationale. And so and then it would just get perpetuated. And so that frustrated me. And so, you used to rile me up pretty much all the time, sending me shit like that. And at that time when I was on Facebook groups, I became friends with Mike Samuels, who is he's an online PT from the UK. And I just followed his model. He's kind of moved from training in a gym to training people online. And I was like, I love the idea of that. That sounds way better, because I hated the fact that I could only train people between 6 or 5 and 8 and then the split shift. And then I was like, what do I do with all this time in the middle? I'm wrecked. I'm tired. I'm run down all the time. I couldn't keep clients because I was feeling shit. And then so people, I just have a high turnover. And it's a gym environment. People don't want long-term anything that comes out of it. It's a very hard sell. So I was like, you know what, stuff this, and especially when you're competing against a bunch of other PTs in the same gym, it's hard to fight for. There's maybe 1% of customers that come through a gym store that are potentially going to be personally trained. So if you have a gym with 6,000 members, that's not too bad of a number or something like that. But if you have 2,500 members and you've got 6 PTs at that gym.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of competition for everyone to get full books and stuff like that.
Yeah, so makes it very, very tricky.
Yeah. And especially when other PTs will just undercut you and stuff. It's just it's just a shitty environment. So I hated that. It was I love the InPerson training. I miss it. As soon as I get back from this trip, after I finish this degree, I'll probably look at doing maybe some form of part-time InPerson training again, because I just love it so much. It's definitely not sustainable for me to do as my main income, but I love it just so much that I could charge less and still get the enjoyment out of it, and just use it as
you're doing it almost for you, right?
Yeah, to fill up my cup so that I get that experience and satisfaction out of it again.
Yeah, I get you.
Because there's nothing better than giving someone 2 tweaks and watching them smash a PB. Yeah, right. Because their form has just been so limiting for their own progression. And you're like, this is all you needed to change. You have so much potential now. Go back and achieve that. Yeah,
having that outside eye, and you're just hey, fix this. And then you watch them do it, and you just watch them how happy they are that they've, hit it. And you're excited, they're excited, everyone's excited.
Yeah. I did that, started transitioning to online, and then been slowly teaching myself different skills and stuff along the way. And it kind of happened as a joke that I went to uni. It was more I have fond memories of being in high school and teachers saying that I'd never go to university. Don't waste your time. You're not smart enough and stuff. And I believed a lot of that shit, and I had shitty parents, so I heard it from them as well. And so I would used to have this massive enlarged perception of how amazing people were that would have gone to uni and stuff like that. And it just seemed so far out of my realm. I didn't come from a family of people that went to university. Everyone's kind of I came from a low socio background. So a lot of my family, the level of intellect and stuff isn't there. I'm just going to stop you
literally right there before you do go on. Just for people listening, as without tooting my own horn, I get a lot of people always coming to me saying, hey man, you seem to know some shit. And it's kind of I study hard, I read, dude, people that are listening don't understand. Dalton is probably one of the smartest people I've ever encountered. ever. just for perspective, like I don't really talk highly of many people when it comes to education and that sort of stuff, and actually, coaching. Dalton's top 5. So just to put that in perspective, he thinks he's coming from this background that he's saying, but just so that annoy Dalton when you want to DM people for things. Don't DM me. Just DM him when you want to know something, because if I don't know it, I'm just going to DM him. I'm just going to message him anyway. So anyway, just wanted to clarify that for people. Continue.
Thanks, mate. And yeah, so I guess, I coming from that background, I really didn't feel I belonged or that it was too far out of reach. So I kind of like, as a fuck you to everyone, I was like, you know what, I'll start investigating what it takes to go through and get the bridging courses that I would need to do to go and do the qualification. Because when I left high school, I got a OP, which is the Queensland equivalent of whatever you guys have.
Which I don't even know anymore.
Neither. It's all national standardized now, but like I got an OP back then, which didn't allow me to come in. It was low. It was like medium or something like that. I really didn't try because I knew I was going to the army in high school. So I just did stuff to not pull the Queensland system, like it works on like average, like summative scores, like pull people up and down. So if you get a low OP, you pull the rest of your cohort down just through the averages. And so I didn't want to do that. So I didn't do enough to do well. I just did enough to scrape through and didn't care. And so I did that bridging course. But the funny thing is I never did chemistry. So in high school, I got told to leave the chemistry class because I got a D on the first assessment or whatever. I couldn't understand it. I hated the teacher and it just frustrated me. And I really haven't enjoyed it ever since. And so when I had to do this bridging course, I had to do chemistry to be able to come into this school, to university. So I had to do like grade 11 and 12 and university grade chemistry all within like a 10-week block to do this bridging course. So like they just smash you through it. And so that was like an eye opener and a really like frustrating thing, but I overcame it and it passed. And now I'm in doing this undergrad. So I'm in the last semester. This is literally the last 8-7 weeks left before I'm done. So I've got 4 subjects. I've got 3 assignments due in the next like 10 days. And then the rest of it's end of year exams, or in biomechanics, we have a video analysis, which is in November.
Yeah, so, have fun with that.
yeah. It's gonna be busy.
Yeah, that sounds very, very hectic, but a nice little background that a lot of people probably didn't know, like being in the army and that sort of stuff. Obviously, for sure. I'm quite privy to that info, but the listeners aren't. So thought we'd touch on that. But I wanted to have a chat about what we had you on our Bros with Brains podcast last week, the roundtable, which was a lot of fun. For those that haven't listened, get on it because it's hilarious, but it's actually pretty educational in itself, which was pretty cool. We went a little bit deeper than what I thought. I thought it was going to be a lot more shit talking, but it ended up being probably a bit more serious than we anticipated.
It was cool just to be along for the ride. It was fun.
Yeah. So you made a comment about post PT. So you did your PT certs, and looking back, you had said you'd wished you'd done a certain qualification that you've got now in, I don't want to get it wrong, but something to do with behavioral change. Yeah. Again, I'm not very familiar with obviously that side of things, as you know. I'm not familiar with those qualifications and how they work. But it's interesting in that you'd said that if you had gone back, that would have been the first thing you did post PT certs.
Yeah, 100%.
Explain a little bit about what the cert is and, why that's what you would have picked.
Yeah. So then when I did my certification, you do the 3 and the 4, and they just give you the basics in, I wouldn't even say it's physiology. It's like, this is a bicep. Very, very, very basic anatomy. Very, very basic. This is your cardiovascular system, and it's a heart and lungs and blood vessels. That's it. So they teach some basics to kind of help you guide through. It's just this basic certification stuff. And there's fuck all focus on business. It's there, but it's there enough for them to sell it, not them enough to provide anything useful. But there's no information as to how help someone achieve change. What they teach you is, if someone comes to you wanting weight loss, here's how to prescribe a weight loss training program. Here's how to recommend, according to the Australian dietary guidelines, things for them to follow so that they can achieve that weight loss. And there was nothing about how to listen to a client talk through the things that they wanted to be changed, or how to respond after someone's given you some information about things that they want to be changing, and to turn that into action that leads to behavior change. And so I didn't know that you had to influence people to get them to change their behavior. To me, because through some I guess like shortcuts in like logical fallacies, and through my own experience, when I would work with people, I'd either have people that were successful due to me, or that I'd have people that failed and that was their own fault. And so I was like, okay, sweet. I can't take responsibility for people that are failing, because if I do that, then I'll start to feel really run down and upset, and like, I won't want to continue this. I won't enjoy this. And so the people that struggled or failed, that it was always a reflection of why they weren't able to achieve it, what stopped them from achieving stuff. But the people that succeeded, I was always like, okay, cool. So I'll keep mimicking these things that I've done with them, because that seems to have the most outcomes for success. So I was like, yes, doing that over and over again, probably two or 3 years. And it was when I started to get more and more clients that wanted a little bit deeper knowledge on things. And because that's kind of what I'm known for, everyone kind of comes to me to learn at least a layer deeper than what they're kind of familiar with. Yes. And I like that. I like getting in the trenches and like the weeds and pulling things apart and trying to navigate through hard topics like that. When I would have people come to me that had struggled past, and for me, the step was to just keep applying education as a tool to help them level up, so that they would get to a place that they could apply it themselves, and then that would become sustainable.
Yep.
The thing was knowing the difference between soluble and insoluble fiber types, and how they interplay with gut permeability, and how that influences the nutrient absorptions. That, like, whilst that's super interesting and it helps level them up, it actually has no application. There's no like value in that. Like, how do you tease apart like fiber types and stuff? How would you improve that for someone? And what does that look like as like from a macros perspective? And so I kept coming up to this. I was like, just people wanted this issue. So I help them with education. People want an issue, help them with education. And I'd work with them for a while. Like, it always have long-lasting relationships. And I'd see change along the way. Don't get me wrong. I'd see people losing weight and stuff like that. But I'd never see them lose the weight and keep it off. It was, or they would lose weight and then be inconsistent for a couple of weeks, lose weight, then inconsistent. And I was like, maybe it's like, maybe I'm giving them too complex things. Maybe I'm giving them too easy things. Like, kept trying to change stuff around. But it was never an understanding. There was never an assessment of like, how do I understand where they're at right now psychologically? How do I figure out where their behavior's at right now? And then what do I need to do to change that? Never was that like a kind of a concept that came up. And it wasn't until at the start of my like university degree that I started reading through a lot more psychology. So the only ever psychology that I was interested in was stuff to do with training and food. It was never really like what we like clinical psychology or behavior change psychology. It was never really any of that.
It was more performance based.
Yeah, if that, it was more like, or like, where does nutrition and psychology, where would they, like, if it was a Venn diagram, where do they cross over the influences and stuff? Because I was like, if psychology should be left to the psychologist. But what I didn't realize is that there's a bunch of skills there that can, when you get fostered and develop, that actually make you a way better nutritionist or a way better personal trainer. And that was how to apply behavior change. So started reading through that stuff. SelfDetermination Theory is the theory that you can read around that. And it was like how do you help someone have more willpower was essentially the kind of question that I kept coming up against. So I was like, I keep wearing down people's willpower. All this, like, I give them stuff that they don't want to eat or they don't love eating. Eventually it's going to make them feel less inclined to eat it. And that like breaks down their willpower. And we as a whole in a country or a nation, or like our population in and around this fitness scene, we all see willpower as this kind of usable resource. It seems to be this thing that, like, if you have to use it, you can't use it for long. And once you've dwindled it down, it tends to reduce your ability to be able to sustain something. And we all think like this because that's how everyone spoke about willpower. But willpower is so much more than that. Motivation is so much more than that. And it's only when people have been exposed to that concept of willpower, does willpower actually fit that criteria. So if someone's never been told that their willpower is finite, they have infinite amount of willpower. They're able to tolerate, they have this higher level of mental fortitude for them to be able to tolerate shitty conditions, and they just keep wearing through it. But when someone then, if you introduce that person to this concept, you wreck their mindset afterwards. They actually start viewing things in terms of chipping away at how much mental willpower you have, so that they end up giving up because they're like, I feel drained, my willpower's run down. And so we have like created this fucking like vortex of like shitty coaching approaches, because no one knows better. No one knows better, and it just keeps getting perpetuated around. And so through reading self-determination theory, goal orientation theory, cognitive behavioral theory, we're looking at different acceptance and commitment therapy. So looking at different types of approaches to working with people and helping people, and especially from a psychological aspect to treat trauma. You start to see how all of these things intertwine with this concept of motivation for us. And it's a question everyone's been asking for like hundreds of years, is like, how do we help people become really motivated? Because if you look at the distribution of people that are really successful, if you could make everyone really motivated and successful, like Elon Musk's and stuff like that, could you imagine how amazing this planet would be? Yeah, but like most of us are just fucking like have average amount of motivation. We have average amounts of inspiration, average amount of work quality. We have crappy setup. So like everything, our life is like a response to the shitty systems that we have around us. So like our inability to be highly motivated comes from the limitations that most jobs place on people's ability to have free will, or to explore things creatively, or to have some aspects of play. And when I was looking at all these things, I was like, why the fuck are people, there's billions of dollars in these companies, why aren't they fixing some of this stuff to make themselves, like, they could easily just become like a super company, and essentially like an Amazon and stuff, or Amazon's probably a poor choice, but like some of the better companies. I'm trying to think of there's one on the tip of my tongue, but I can't actually think about who it is. But anyway, they do something that really helps out improve performance and stuff like that, and they have one of the highest retention rates, so that you don't have to rehire people. Like, that's a really good sign of company success. So but anyway, I'm rambling. So essentially I did all that. I started looking through all of that, and I was trying to figure out how to help people feel more motivated. And what I didn't realize was motivation, and that idea of motivation is kind of wrong. Like, we always feel motivated to do things. Most people, when they say I'm feeling really motivated right now, they actually mean they're feeling really inspired. So it's kind of this like, just getting a bit pedantic, but that's what they're feeling, right? They go onto YouTube, they type in like, I want to listen to fucking CT Fletcher's motivational video or something like that to feel some sense of inspiration and stuff. But they see motivational videos, so they're like, this is giving me motivation to go to the gym. Yeah, it's inspiring you to go to the gym. Motivation is the actions that you do to just to want to drive towards something else. So like, you are motivated to drink water, not only because it's a physiological requirement to stay alive, but you're motivated to not die. So you want to drink water and stuff because of that. So like, we're constantly motivated for things all the time. It's just, we perceive it as a finite resource, and we perceive it more as inspiration. So when I was wrapping my head around that, I was like, all right, fine. If people naturally go through this really high inspiration at the start of coaching, where else do they go through really high inspiration? What else? What other situations and stuff where human beings think in categorical senses? So like the start of the week, start of the new year, start of the month, start of holidays, start of anything, everyone's inspiration is super high. Everyone's motivation to change is really high as well, but their inspiration is just as high. So I was like, holy shit, like, that you mean that new Monday, new me, or that new like new year, new me kind of thing? Is like, is it actually like I shouldn't just keep ragging on this concept? I should actually try and get behind clients and be like, you know what, take advantage of that, use that, and use that to foster change and stuff like that. Yeah. So I started doing a lot of self-reflection and figuring out that I had probably some shitty protocols and practices, and it was like, I need to figure out ways to help people feel more inspired, understand what motivation is, help them understand how to set proper, achievable goals that actually have value. So a lot of the time people create goals that have no essence to them to help them stay orientated towards what they're trying to achieve. So it was like, how do I figure out how to do that? And then if I apply that to what I've already got now, which is no-nonsense approach to nutrition and training. So just tell them the basics that they need to do. Don't overcomplicate things. Keep it super simple and easy to achieve. And when it feels like it's achievable, maybe make it even easier again so that it's like no energy for them to achieve it. If I follow that recipe of success, if I can go through, inspire people, help them orientate their goals, move towards them, and give them tasks that literally feel so easy to achieve, that success is kind of just a natural byproduct of being so like just doing these basic things, then I kind of created this whole coaching experience that I have now. So when I look back at that, I was like, I should have fucking done that as a PT years ago, because I wasted the first 4 or 5 years as a PT. Not wasted, but like spent it just learning in the wrong directions, thinking that more education will help them. The more research reviews I read will help them. The more like articles I read will help them. And it was like consume knowledge at a rapid rate to try and help people, which did lead to me like, increasing my knowledge base on things, quite extensively. However, it didn't help me to become a better coach.
Yeah. I guess in terms of that, then the actual, certification or qual, I'm pretty sure
right.
you had done one. Yeah. Like, well, I guess what's the go there? Because I guess it does, cross or, a fine line of psychology. And obviously, like you said before, we don't know something outside of our scope. We refer out.
Yeah.
But in this instance, you are qualified to do, this certain practice. So what is it that you sort of looked at and what you did?
Yeah, so I just started applying some of the stuff that I was learning from uni whilst I kept looking. So I was like, who in Australia, like I actually wanted to do a mentorship first. I was like, who in Australia is doing really good behavioral change approaches within the nutritional fitness space? And I couldn't find anyone. I looked for days. So like if anyone's listening to this and you know someone, DM me and let me know, because I'd love to meet or have a better network in terms of that. But like I could find no one. And so I was like, I'll just start figuring out and creating my own map. And whilst I was looking around for that, Gary Mendoza is a PhD. He did his PhD in this self-determination therapy coupled with motivational interviewing. And through his PhD, his program had like an 84% success rate. So like in nutrition and exercise literature, that's insane. Like you're seeing good numbers if you see somewhere in the realms of like 60 to 70%. 84% is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like especially of a long-term behavioral change weight loss program. So like it's 12 weeks. So like that is super high, but it's not only just the retention rate, it's the success rate. Like they all achieve the things that they set out, the 10% of weight loss body mass that they set out. But it wasn't just that he did it in that PhD, they've applied it in like different countries. So it's part of the New Zealand's now is how they approach and work with particular like Maoris, and there's like programs and stuff that are placed in there. So it's part of their like general a government approach, a mandated program and stuff that they have applied there. And it's also part of the UK stuff. So when you see that starting to happen in different areas in countries like that, you start to take notice of some of the things there. So I saw that Gary had created his courses. It's called Stages of Change. And he was hosting them in the UK. And I couldn't find anyone here in Australia. So I reached out to him and I organized a group of Australians to do it all at once so that I could get, if I had enough people, I could get access to this course. I could do this course essentially. So I had to convince enough people to want to do this thing as well so that I could go through and learn it. And through that, he teaches a lot around self-determination theory and motivational interviewing. So if you have no experience, he does a really good job at giving you some experience around that. And then I also have done acceptance and commitment therapy with Russ Harris, who that is in an attempt to increase my communication ability. And essentially motivational interviewing will give most people the like therapy or counseling skills to be able to talk to people to understand and elicit behavior change. Mm-hmm. I wanted acceptance and commitment therapy because for me, a part of the real struggles that I didn't like with cognitive behavioral theories at university was when you read these papers, or when you read these texts, or when you read these practitioner books, how they go through some of this behavior change. And some of my own like previous psych experiences highlighted this as well, is that I would be faced with a thought, say I had anxiety or depression. There approach was like get you to recognize it, fight back at it. What would you do if you were trying to overcome it? All of these different skills which were trying to help you realize that this end product will get you through stages of grief to the end point, which is acceptance. And so to me, it didn't make sense that we would approach that way when there was another arm of counseling style that was just a start with the place of acceptance. And so that is called acceptance and commitment therapy. And it is what they call a third wave psycho-counseling therapy. So it means this cognitive behavioral therapy is second wave. And the first wave stuff is like the old lobotomies and psychoanalysis.
No, I'm joking.
Freud and all Freudian stuff, like all that, like all the stuff that just originally exists around psychology that people think is true, but it can't be falsified. So like when science can't be falsified, it's not good science. So like essentially there's no way of disproving it. It's like saying, is there not a God? Like you can't disprove it. So it's like, it's not really great science to say that that's the definitive answer. It's because neither stance can be falsified. So it's like, it takes us nowhere. And so because of that experience through cognitive behavioral therapy, I wanted to get trained in acceptance and commitment therapy. So I did that as well. And the two, self-determination theory and acceptance and commitment therapy, maybe with the MI, is probably the best skills that you could learn as a way to listen, or ask someone a question, listen to their answer, respond appropriately to get more information out of them so that the information you get is actually actionable, not just this surface level vague responses that people, unfortunately, like just through general interactions that we have. It's, when we talk about losing, if someone comes to you and says, I want to lose some weight, they are saying that because they don't want to talk about the real issues of stuff that might be implying them to cause them to be stressed out enough for them to constantly find like seeking out overeating and stuff like that. They're just saying that they're struggling and that they just want, like, this is all, but they don't want to tell a stranger real issues and stuff like that. Yeah. And so to help build that trust and to help build a relationship with them, you can learn how to ask questions enough in a way that respects their privacy, is directed by them so they feel great about it, and is also gives you it literally gives you their like guidebook on what they need to do to be successful. And like most PTs, most coaches were like, fuck, I'm running out of ideas. Like learning these skills, after you speak to your clients, they literally tell you exactly what it would take for them to get there. And so you're just like, through this skill now, like, let's do this. You've just said it. Like, let's see if that's true and test it and keep repeating it and helping them understand it, fostering it. And if it keeps, building, then you're like, they were truthful. They were like, this is the plan for them. This is how you help people move forward. And I was like, holy shit. The amount of weeks that I would have people come to me when I had they were like, I'm stuck. I can't lose any weight. And I was out of ideas after trying everything. You're like, I guess like for me, I was like, to me, when the math makes sense, when the calories and the math make sense, the exercise stuff was meant to add up, and they were reporting this to me, it should be happening. So like, and the number one rule that has always stuck out in my head is people underreport their food and people overreport their exercise. And so I'm like, they're telling me the math is here. And so by just the sheer laws of thermodynamics, I know that this has to happen. They have to be losing weight, but they're not. And so it was like, there's somewhere that they probably don't know that they're being that they're not being accurate or truthful about something. It's not intentionally lying about things. Sure, you might get it every now and then. Most of the time, people just have no idea on the influences of why that they might not be like, achieving fat loss. A lot of times these things fucking just kill people all the time. They like, if someone does a training session and it says it does 300 or 500 calories or something like that, I've seen some watchers say like 800 calories for a fucking hour training session.
Yeah, we know how much they fucking overreport.
I'm like, holy shit, if you were burning 800 calories, that is more than if you were to a cycle of run for nearly that time. So I was like, you would have had to have continually been moving with your heart rate in the range of like 120 to 140 beats per minute. Like, and when I explain this to them, and they're like, well, the watch says this. And I'm like, oh, cool. So when you were thinking you were actually doing 800 calories, it's likely you're only doing 200 calories. Yeah, so if we minus that, we see this like surplus start coming into it, or at least a maintenance intake, and you're like, all right, cool. Now it makes sense why you're not losing weight. And so when those things are happening, I was excellent. But when I run out of ways to help people understand the calorie intake, I was like racking my brain as to how I could help them. And they asked me, and I'd be like, we just have to like keep going, I guess, until your body adjusts and stuff like that. Now it's like we go a completely different direction. You use a whole bunch of different skills to try and help them be guided towards the right actions, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess you're sort of talking about the success rate that you're having with that. Like, how is that now? How long have you, I guess, you've been employing this sort of coaching, and, how well is it going, I guess?
Yeah. So I started employing it within about the last year of my last employer. So I've been a year with them, plus I've left them a year and a bit ago. So like 2 and a bit years now. So when I was working with them, I had limitations with the coaching approach that they had one very direction, like one dimension method. And so just through that, like you're kind of restricted in that. But I was trying to practice it and apply it then, because that's where I was finding a lot of struggles, just working with different clients, having different exposures there. And so then, yeah, massively in the back end of that last 6 months there, and since, like, just continually since then. But like now my success rate is so high. Like I work with less people, so I have a less of a turnover. The people that want to work with me know that when they jump on, part of my onboarding process, I guess, or filtering process, like, is to have information that is actionable for people that just want to find. If people just want to learn how to lose weight or whatever, they can read my Instagram profile, and there's so much free shit on there that it's just like, this is a free version of me. And so if you want to just have that, don't come to me, because that's not what I'm great at. I'm great at the people that are stuck, frustrated, overwhelmed, and lost, and have been doing this over and over again and can't figure it out themselves. And so since then, I've worked with less people. I've had a higher success rate. I'd have to look at my numbers, but the last time I saw it, it was, above 90% success rate on getting people to achieve the things that they want to be achieving. But it was also with sustainable behavior change. So I hadn't seen anyone that's gone through and had the weight loss that they wanted to initially achieve regain that weight, which is one of the biggest issues. We don't have a weight loss issue in the world. People can lose weight rapidly if they want to. We have an issue with just how we keep it stable. Like our maintenance is an issue. People just don't know how to stay at the body weight, which is just influenced by thousands of factors. So yeah, I've got a super high success rate before that. I have a very low client turnover rate. I work with the same people consistently, and I like it that way. I build way better relationships, help them achieve far better results. And so, yeah, I've that's been awesome to see. But like, this is like in the realm of, so I can give some numbers here as well. So like, most people will come to me with a minimum of like 10 kilos to lose or something like that. So it's not like they've just wanted to lose a couple of kilos or something like that. 10 kilos is pretty much the minimum that I've seen. And up to, and we've had, a client of mine that's come and worked with you, and he's achieved massive changes and stuff like that. So, and then work with you and continue to do those changes and stuff. So like, this is just like, more proof, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess you have your Facebook group as well, where people can sort of find you if they're not looking at your Instagram profile.
Yeah,
everyone still
true.
originally has a Facebook group. So
yeah. This is new. I kind of got off Facebook groups for a while because I just kept getting angry about everything, and then just distracted. I just get distracted with uni, and so now I've gone back and started creating mine. So I think we just hit 300 members, which is pretty cool to think 300 people are kind of listening to my stuff. It's slowed down. I had to slow it down because I just couldn't sustain it whilst I'm in this last bit of uni. But like, I just have to 7 more weeks, baby, and once I'm 3, you'll see a lot of me in there as well. Well, you see me pretty much posting daily, but you'll see a lot of high quality content coming out soon.
So I guess plug your Facebook group. What is it?
It's called I think it's the Macro King free Facebook group. Macro King is like, if you type into Instagram Macro King, you'll find me. So MACRO King, that you'll find me as on Instagram. And then to follow on with that is just the Macro King free Facebook group.
Yeah. And I guess what else is going on in that Facebook group? Much going on compared to your Instagram posts? Are they similar? They're a bit different? Like what's
so yeah, the Facebook seems to be a bit more like bigger, longer content, stuff like that. So looking at, I do live videos and stuff where I answer people's questions that they've submitted, based on around nutrition, psychology, exercise, science, even in general. I like to do, I'll share some stuff from Instagram across over there, just because some people that are in there don't use Instagram. I find some of my different, like kind of a little bit of an older audience don't tend to be on Instagram a lot.
Instagram, yep.
And then that would probably be my biggest difference is the longer content, so videos and the live videos, the lives and the video content that I do on there. And they'll be once November 20th comes and goes, we're starting to look at giveaways. We're starting to look at different rejigging some ebooks and stuff. I'm starting to launch my Vitality Script again, which is my small group coaching program. So I'm kind of capped, or I'm busy. I've got 3 spots now, but like I'm nearly always full on my one-on-one coaching program. And so after that, I have a small group coaching program that I just do one per month, which is 10 people per month can go through and do it in a shared experience. So what I was identifying was that people would go through these stages of weight loss, these stages of behavioral change. And so I would use tools to assess their readiness and continually use those tools along the way with the Vitality Script. And I could essentially create a blueprint mapped out version of what they would naturally achieve with working with me. So because I was identifying all these stages, I was like, I can replicate that and force that in particular weeks, but give everyone lifetime access. So as soon as I'll finish with it, we go through and do from basically ignorance around food and training to highly knowledgeable and applying different skills to highly knowledgeable and applying different skills, no tracking methods or stuff like that. So I was stepping away from it into a space where it's as intuitive as it can be, and then getting them to apply it for a maintenance break, and off they go. And so that once they work through that, I don't want them to come back. I don't want anyone to have gone through it and gone, you know what, I didn't get enough education through it or a great enough experience that they have to come back to relearn things. But they also get lifetime access as well, so they can just take themselves back through it. And if, say, you know, after doing it in like a year or two, they're like starting to trickle back up in weight, which kind of happens as part of the things that I explore and talk to them about. Like, take yourself back through, say, week 3 and go, all right, how do I apply my goals? What do I do? What did we do to pull out my goals and apply them? How do I start doing that to get to here? What did we do here? And you just do that through that course and save yourself $1,000.
Yeah, so I was going to say, what's on the horizons? You sort of just answered it, but post uni, you said a couple of ebooks, Vitality Scripts coming.
Yeah, and potentially doing the International Olympic certification. So I just don't stop. I've got from November 20th. Once the end of semester happens, we will be driving around Australia for a year. So we've got, me and my wife Isabel have built a Nissa Patrol up, and we'll be traveling around, and I'll still work continually. I just won't be in this beautiful office that you can see me now. I'll have all these different locations and stuff. And so from that, we'll continue to work around that, and the Vitality Script and stuff will happen continuously whilst we're traveling around, which will be really cool. And yeah, I'm looking at starting the International Olympic certification, just so that I can tell people at the pub that I can work with Olympians and stuff. I think it's a pretty fucking awesome flex.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, it's a cool flex. At the same time, it's like, it doesn't really get you much. It's like being one of my best mates is actually an Olympian. He's a kayaker, and you know, way back when I just done my certs, and I think my first year of uni, I had him as a client, and yeah, he ended up making the Olympics. And like, I think I posted it once, I got nothing. I was like, oh, fuck it.
Yeah.
No one cares.
People really don't seem to care about the Olympics at all, except for maybe like the super familiar events. I was like, I'd be that nutritionist after doing this course that gets applied, like sent to the dart team or something like that.
Yeah.
And like, I have to run some nutritional protocols for dart players or something.
Yeah,
that'll be who I like. Yeah, I'll get
shooting or something
like
that no one cares about.
Yeah, or archery or something like that. It's like, okay, like how rigorous is this exercise? So it's pretty funny. But yeah, I'm doing it more because I think it'd be fun to just be able to say that I'm a certified nutritionist for Olympians, rather than the fact that, you know, who knows with the Brisbane Olympics coming up, you know, and whatever it is. I might be in prime position to have to work with some Olympians on Australian soil. So who knows where we'll go.
Would be pretty cool. Where can people find you, my friend?
So most of the time, just on Instagram or on Facebook. I try to keep my interactions as limited as possible during uni, but like when I post stories, I jump on and interact with them. They send me DMs in the Facebook group as well. Go for it, interact with me as much as possible. So that you'll find me there most often. And I have a website, it's just my first and last name.com. So DaltonFranke.com. You find some basic info about me and some prices and services and stuff like that, some podcasts, everything, all the different podcasts I've been on. But really, if you want a visual experience, the Instagram is just designed to give you quick, easy snippets to look at things and go, all right, cool, that makes sense. The Facebook group, more for the technical crowd that want to understand or get a greater in-depth answer to things. And then if those don't satisfy your curiosity, you can either come work with me or do some consults and we map out some stuff for you. Cool. Which is how, like, what most people do. Like, since I get nearly full all the time, they call me up and just want to do monthly or, blocks of consults and stuff and just map out progress for time to time. Not everyone needs a hands-on approach, like so intimate like mine.
Yep. And then last thing I tend to ask, most people seem to get stuck on this question, 3 Instagram accounts you follow that just help your day-to-day life, whether it be funny, whether it be educational, whether it be... Yeah, I know it gets everyone.
I wouldn't even know who I follow. Like, that's the hardest thing. Like, I have this one page called chemistry humor, which is like, there you go. No one else will laugh at it besides like people that have ever done a chemistry course, and I crack up at it. It's like that and dad jokes. I think both of those both of those get me through quite a lot. I'm trying to think who else do I.
It's funny how much this stumps so many people.
Yeah. Like when I'm on Instagram, I'm either just like posting about it, putting a story, or I'm replying to someone's DMs. I don't really scroll through the feeds and stuff like that. So it's that's that third one's a hard one to probably ask. Actually, I don't mind Mike Rizatel's posts. He tends to like have enough diversity in his posts that when I see it, it either makes me laugh or it makes me like think about exercise or nutrition in a particular way. And he mirrors a lot of my thoughts, which is really cool. But like when he does apply some broader thinking to things, it does make you contemplate how things can kind of fit. But he makes it super dumbed down that anyone can read it and apply it.
There you go. Well, thanks for jumping on, my friend. As always, it's nice to catch up, and hopefully the listeners get a bit of a kick out of it. I know I always do when we chat. Yeah,
cheers. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. No, thanks for talking me up.
Please, people don't understand that this dude is like one of the smartest in the country. So just like annoy him when you want to know something. Don't message me anymore.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, man. See ya.
And thanks, guys, for tuning in.